I kind of fell off for a little bit. So like I've always had, like depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. And I would get really hard on myself. I would like compare myself to others and be like, oh, my progress isn't as great as them. Like, why am I even doing art? And then, AI art coming up on the rise. I was like, man, am I really gonna try and, because I initially wanted to be, a 2D artist and draw and try to put my work out there. And AI art came up on the rise, and I'm like, oh, that's like even more competition. Like, how am I gonna manage this?
Hello, welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and we got one hell of a guest, and that is.
I'm Meia. Hello.
Hello, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, very much so, man.
Oh,
Yeah, you guys too. Excited to be here.
Did I say that right? Did I pronounce her name right? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, Meia, like the month of May.
Maya? Oh,
Yeah.
at least she didn't say mayo. Yeah, what do you like on your mayo? Well, okay.
Oh no.
so
Eek.
what are you most known for? How'd you get into VR chat and VR, and what got you started with everything?
Oh man. What I'm most known for, I guess, would be my Novacat edit of the Nova Beast. This is my personal version of it. What got me started in VR? I initially got interested, like most people, way back in the Uganda Knuckles meme thing. I didn't take the plunge though. I saw the videos, thought it was funny. I'd always had an interest in VR. Like I would watch Markiplier do his Let's Plays like on the dev kit one with the Oculus. And I was like, man, that's so cool. But it was like way outside of my price range, my budget. I was like, there's no way. So I was like, I'll wait until VR is cheaper and I can get into it. And I saw VRChat. I was like, that is cool, but I don't have enough money for a VR headset. I think I thought you needed VR back then to play VRChat. So I like kind of wrote it off. And then of course the pandemic happened. We were all forced to like shelter in place. At the time, I was living in Japan because my husband's in the U.S. Navy, so he was stationed there. I was living there with him. His ship happened to be out at sea when it all went down. He was supposed to return in only 3 months, and his ship was going to be in the yards, and we were supposed to travel to Japan together that year because he would have time. But because his ship was out and never got exposed, the Navy was like, all right, cool, you guys get to stay out indefinitely. So I didn't have a return date. Yeah, I didn't have a return date for him anymore. It was all up in the air. And around this time is when I got prescribed an antibiotic, fluoroquinolone antibiotic. I had a horrible adverse reaction to that. Body-wide disability, basically. I stopped being able to like walk or use my hands even. So things got really lonely for me. Because we were sheltering in place, couldn't leave the house regardless. To kind of fast forward a bit, eventually, my husband's ship came back in. He had to come in early. I might get into that later, but he had to come back in early. His ship showed up just 2 weeks after that. And then we were going back to the U.S. So we came back to the U.S. My condition was slightly improving, but it still wasn't great. With my doctor, they determined it wasn't really safe for me to get vaccinated with the type of reaction I had to the antibiotic. So I wasn't able to leave my house. So there was no socializing. We were in a new place, didn't know anybody. So it's like, man, but I'm super lonely. It's just me. My husband goes to work all day. I'm just like sitting by myself, and I remembered VRChat. And I was like, I could probably make some friends, at least have some bit of socialization. I think this was back in 2021. Yeah, late 2021. So I started poring over videos, researching like what headset am I going to get. And I saw like the Index is like the best one, but I was like, that's really pricey. I'm also probably never going to do full body because I'll never be able to make use of it, is what I thought. So I went with a Quest 2. At that point, I knew you could play VRChat desktop only, but I was like, no, I want my first experience to be in VR. So ordered a Quest 2, got it. I think I tried it first standalone, even though I do have a gaming PC. Like, we've been big PC gamers, my husband and I, but I was like, let's try it standalone because like I didn't have a link cable or anything. And it was cool. not super great at the timing because I think it was during like right after Questmas. So late 2021, January 2022. So like because I was Quest only, I was getting thrown into it with a lot of the Quest kids and stuff. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait for my link cable to come in. This is a little rough, but it's cool. Then I got on PC VR and I've never looked back. It's been great. Being able to socialize, make friends, like I actually like have a virtual life, I would say even. It's really neat.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Okay.
By the way, when you said you first came in, what was the weirdest thing you ever saw in VR when you first stepped in?
Oh man. Oh, that is a good question. When I first came in, I don't know. I've seen so much wild stuff in here.
Yeah, I bet we all have. But it's just the idea. Everybody's got a different situation. I just want to hear yours.
Yeah. I've certainly had some creepy moments and wild moments. But for when I first loaded in, I think it was just like the utter chaos. Like you have all these meme avatars, and then you have like more serious avatars, and the physics. The physics on some avatars on certain body parts will say. And I had to get used to that. I'm like, that's not how that would work in real life. Interesting. Because right,
gotcha.
I came in during Dynamic Bones right before they made the switch to Fizz Bones. So yeah, I remember that.
Okay. So you said you made an a alter skin of the Nova Beast. What led you to being to be able to come out with that, and how much work did it take to like get there to finally release it?
Oh man, yeah. So it's actually a bunch of blend shapes that I made. I probably should have been in the version that I could like turn it back to the original Nova Beast face shape. But I don't know. I saw the Nova Beast. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so adorable. It's like a Nardo and a Wicker Beast and a cat got together, and that's what came out was the Nova Beast. And I was like, I'm gonna make it a cat. I don't know why. It just the Nova Beast was very feline coded to me, and I had this obsession with making it a cat. And initially I was just doing it for me. So I started out slowly over time because my disability still affects my hands. So sometimes I have flare-ups, and I'm not always able to do a whole lot with my hands. So here and there, like I think I first just made the tail swap. Sat with that. Actually, first I made the texture, then I made the tail swap, and it was just like slow improvements over time. And then eventually I finally got around to sculpting on the face, which I was scared to do for a long time. Because when you touch the face of an avatar, you can mess up visemes. I'd always heard that, and I was like, oh, but I have this vision of a cat in my head on this particular base, and I want to do it. So, and even then, that was a slow progress. I would do just tiny little bits at a time, run around like that. And eventually I got it to looking pretty cat-like, a stage before this slow, but it was pretty cat-like. And I decided to like upload it to social media, first just in the Nova Beast Discord and then on the VRChat subreddit. And I had a bunch of people being like, oh, that's so cool. Are you going to sell it? And I was like, oh, I had no plans to, but maybe. Yeah, it was shocking. At the time, though, I was like kind of kicking myself because like I had gotten rid of the male chest, I'd gotten rid of like the fluff and the goggles that the original Nova Beast comes with, and I was like, there's probably people that want to be male, so I kind of had to go back in and redo a lot from there. And I didn't make promises to people. I didn't want to be like open about my disability, like have that forefront, but I was just like, maybe we'll see. I'll think about it. I had to briefly mention, I was like, I do have a disability that makes things difficult sometimes, but like, we'll see. And it was just an emotional roller coaster since then of just me being like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Oh, but sure I can. And then as I would work and people would like my stuff and they like really wanted to buy it, there was this part of me that had like imposter syndrome because I haven't been doing avatar work that long. There's still a lot I have to learn. And I just kept being like, why do people want to buy my product when I don't know what I'm doing still? I don't understand. Luckily, my husband encouraged me. The friends I made here in VRChat really heavily encouraged me too. So I just I went for it. I think it took me close to a year. Like if I didn't need to start over, if I didn't need to constantly take breaks for my hands, it could have been quicker, but it took around a year, I would say. And I finally put it out, and yeah, it's been shocking and amazing. I'm really. It feels weird. I don't feel like it's real all the time.
Oh, so
Now,
with,
is that the only thing that you create? Is just strictly the that type of avatar, or are you working on going further with it? See what I'm getting at with a style of your own.
Yeah, I do have plans to keep updating this and improving on it. I also took the Chibi Nova Beast and made that into a cat. I don't know if I'm gonna sell that. I'll have to figure out if that's allowed. Technically, I could if somebody already owns the Nova Beast or the Chibi Nova Beast and do it that way. I just don't know if I could do it the way I'm doing it now with this Novacat edit or not. I want to start learning from scratch, I think. But again, it's from scratch is a whole other beast than just editing something pre-existing. There's a lot more involved. I hate weight painting. I can do it, but I despise weight painting. So it's But it would be cool to start making more assets and stuff. That's something that I feel weighed a bit too heavily on my mind. When I first initially released my Nova Beast, I was like, I was putting too much pressure on myself for it to perform, because I was like, oh man, I've been disabled. I haven't been able to contribute to the households. Now I'm finally kind of making money, but I can't work all the time with my hands. Really hope this sells really well. It even got to the point where initially, I had a lot of sales and things were good. And then I had 2 days where sales dropped, and I was like, oh no, that's it. It's over for me. I won't be bringing in any more into the house. And I was freaking out about it. I was just really getting down on myself. And my husband's like, I never told you had to contribute money to the household. You're being too hard on yourself, and you're gonna hate doing avatar work if you keep up like this. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I'm pretty sure the reason for that is, and I don't blame this family member. We've made up, we've forgiven each other. We were having a moment, if you will, but they called me useless with my disability and not being able to do anything. Really, really awful to hear. So I think that's part of what was really driving my anxiety. Oh man, it's not making sales and I'm gonna get called useless again, sort of thing, which just isn't the case at all. A lot better on that now. And like I said, I'm on good terms with that family member. We've apologized. Everything's good now. But yeah, it's been an emotional roller coaster ride. I've never been in this position before. I guess technically I'm a business owner. It still doesn't quite feel real. It's yeah, it's crazy. And it's all through virtual reality. If somebody told me, yeah, you're going to sell an edit of an avatar and run a business and learn Blender and Unity, even just a year ago, I'd have been like, yeah, you're crazy. There's no way.
whoa.
What's the hardest thing you've learned since you started your business? I've been in quite a few businesses, and each one's got a different roller coaster. So what's the hardest thing that you ever had?
I have social anxiety, so the social aspect has been a learning curve experience for me. Oh man, because some people might have outlandish requests, and me having to put boundaries. It still gives me anxiety to do that, but sometimes people are like, hey, can you do this, this, and this for me? And I want it done for free. And I feel awful being like, no, I can't do that for free. or just like, other things. That's been a little weird. I also found out that people don't read. Um,
We've heard that a few
so
times.
there's
Sorry, don't read the fine print. You're screwed. That fine print
yeah.
means everything. Read the shit. Yeah, knowing it's in big bold letters, bigger than I am.
Yep. And, I think we've all been there. We get a little too excited and we buy something and like, oh, oops, I didn't see that. I did my best. I bold letters. It's up near the top. Because I think until recently, since the Nova Beast, there's no commercial license for it. So it's one of those, somebody has to own the Nova Beast first before you can sell an edit of it. So I'm doing like a lot of other avatar creators are doing for that base. And, we buy it on my Gumroad or I don't know if you say it, Ko-fi or Coffee. And then you actually go into my Discord and verify, and you get the files through Discord. So that way I can go with Kitomatic's terms of service, make sure that you own the Nova Beast first before I give you the files. Most people who've been with a Nova Beast base since it first started, they're used to it, but I've had a few people, I think that's also contributed because like they're not really used to that being a thing, so I don't really blame them for that. They're like, wait, I've had a few people like message me panicking like, oh, I bought your thing and where's the files? And I'm like, it's okay, you just verify here and you're good to go. And they're like, oh, okay.
What were you expecting getting into avatar creation when you put yourself out there to sell the avatar? What were you expecting it to be like versus what you experienced right off, may I ask?
That's hard to say since I wasn't initially expecting to sell it at all. It was initially just very personal to me. I guess once I changed to selling it, I was like, kind of hope for the best, but don't expect much sort of a deal, I'm not really sure. I think I was more focused on I just remembered. That's right. I think what overshadowed that was while I was still working on the edit for release, I had a few people message me. The VRChat community is amazing, especially the furry VRChat community, because I had people reach out to me and didn't even know them. And they were like, hey, there's some guy on Gumroad selling your Novacat edit, scamming people. And I was like, oh crap, like what do I do? And like I looked it up, that listing was up for a while, and I had to like put in a ticket with Kitomatic to try and get it taken down, and it was up for a while. And I just felt like even more pressure, like, oh, I better hurry up and get this edit out so that way nobody can like scam people. I was like feeling awful. Luckily, most people knew, so the guy kept dropping the price. He eventually had it dropped to just $1. Unfortunately, he got one person. Hopefully, they got their dollar back. But luckily, the person left a review, and they were like, what did I just spend my dollar on? There's nothing here. And then it finally got taken down. I don't know why Gumroad's not doing anything about this particular account, because it keeps coming back, and it's like trolling. It has to be trolling the NovaBeast server or maybe other social medias, because they've now tried to scam using other people's edits and stuff. And I don't think it's just NovaBeast edits, but yeah, it's pretty terrible. I really hope that account gets taken down, but we'll see.
Okay. So after you put it up and you started seeing sales come in, what was the public's general response to your creation, and what did you think of getting that kind of response from people?
Oh man, it's so wild to me. It still doesn't feel real. Like I've had people, like one person was like, all this time I've been looking for like a cat base that would like suit me, and I never found it until your edit. And it's like the best cat base edit ever. And I was like, oh man, that is such high praise. Oh my gosh. But that's kind of why I started out, because I was in the same boat. I was like, I want to be a cat. I'm a crazy cat lady in real life. I love cats. I adore them. But like, I found a lot of cute cat bases, but none where I was like, yeah, that's me. That suits me. But then the Nova Beast came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, that would be such a good base to work on. Oh, my cat's shouting at me. Hey, sorry.
It's okay.
Hopefully you stop picking that up. But yeah, because I tried the public edit of the Nova Beast when it first came out, and like I didn't need to scale anything. The arm length is perfect, the leg length is perfect. Shoulder width, like the body proportions are more realistic. I was like, oh my god, this is just the perfect base to work on. And I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad I didn't talk myself out of not doing it like I almost did. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I'm like super surprised and very happy because a lot of people really seem to like it. Ooh, I need a drink.
Oh. Well, I could see why. It's from looking at the avatar you're in now. It looks amazing. For being your first avatar edit, it looks beautiful. I'll be honest. You did a good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So, was it easy to get into avatar creation? Where did you go and what did you do to get started along the path of working on all this?
Oh man, it was not easy. There's a big learning curve, especially with Blender. I like Blender better than Unity because I have a little bit of a background in art, so my brain's more on the art side of things. But just like all the shortcut keys, where everything is located, how to do certain things, there's a big learning curve. Luckily, I'd become friends with some avatar creators as well, or maybe none that have made avatars from scratch. So I guess avatar editors. So like kind of a combination of them, mostly YouTube, because especially in the beginning, I had problems asking for help. So I would like beat my head against the YouTube wall trying to find good tutorials to work on. And, you know, someone would be like, okay, now that you have done this, and they would like skip ahead 10 steps. And I'm like, wait, what? Huh? Or, you know, just crazy. I managed to find some good ones. And then eventually I finally got to where I would have a system where I would look up tutorials, try it myself. And then after a while of doing it, if I still couldn't figure it out, I had, you know, my community of friends that I could be like, hey, I tried this. I can't figure it out. Please help. And they've been really helpful. Like most people in VRChat I've found are more than willing to like help you out when you're starting to create avatars. So long as you're not too pushy. I've had my fair share of like, oh, you make avatars, help me with this, this, and this, like right off the bat. Don't even know them. I recommend not doing that. Nobody likes that.
Okay. So you have a background in art. So how was a Blender a easy switch into when working on it?
Sculpting, I got the hang of right away. That was the only thing that I really picked up on right away. Everything else, like for the longest time, I avoided touching edit mode. Even I was like, nope, that's scary. I could ruin something. I don't want to touch edit mode, so I would just stay in sculpt mode. Now I'm a lot more comfortable with things. Unity is in some ways harder in Blender. In my opinion, it also depends on how your brain is. Since I'm more artist brain, things like more complicated animations and stuff like that, I'm like, well, I don't know how people do that. You know, I can do your basic clothing toggle and, you know, basic things like that. Anything beyond that, I'm like, I'm not the one. I'm not the one. Come to me with Blender, but everything else, no.
Okay. So now that you're learning on the path of working in Unity and Blender, have you been able to see the platform the same or differently from when you first hopped in?
The platform, you mean like VRChat or
Yeah,
Unity?
VRChat.
Yeah, I think I have more of an appreciation of like how much work goes into things. Like, you know, when I go into worlds and stuff, I'm like, wow, like, because I have some world creator friends. I don't know much about world creation, but it's a whole other beast to avatar creation, that's for sure. And I know more what goes into things and how to set up things smoothly and stuff like that. Or like when I see somebody's avatar, like when I've seen that they've done like a lot of work, yeah, you know, whether it's like texture work or shader work or anything really, I'm like always willing to be like, oh my god, I love your avatar. Like it's cool, you know, just kind of like help encourage people because you know it's a struggle sometimes. Sometimes Unity crashes or tells you it can't do a thing and it was doing just fine earlier. Like I get the struggle.
I've heard similar sentiments before. So how long did it take you to finally pick up the whole thing to get into? And what kind of tools are you using in your toolkit to work on avatars?
Yeah, so for me, the learning curve was very high because my history in art was more traditional and I had like dabbled here and there in digital. So I had a basic understanding of using layers, and that's it. That's as far as my digital work in general extended before I started in all of this. Um, so like the tools, like I said, YouTube, went to YouTube a lot. Some of the friends I made. Now I would say for making an avatar, obviously we're using Unity. The VRChat creator companion now I think that's required now. I do have a friend that like held off on that, but anyway, I say my mainstay is Blender, Substance Painter, Photoshop, which I totally got both of those programs totally free and legally and didn't sail the high seas for those. Let's see what else. I feel like I've used some other things. Sometimes Krita. Like honestly, Krita's great. Highly recommend it. Open source. If people are more familiar with doing 2D textures, which can be very challenging, highly recommend Krita. I support them where I can. What other tools? There's some Blender add-ons that are really good and free, like mesh data transfer. Highly recommend that. There's another one that I can't think of the name of, but you can essentially mute different key shapes or blend shapes and only port over the blend shapes that you want using the mesh data transfer in tandem. That's been great. Cats plugin, although be careful with that. That can break your avatar. Definitely follow tutorials on that one. I think that covers everything. Be sure.
Okay. So I have another question for you. What got you into art initially? Since you have a traditional art background, what made you want to do that?
I think being a weeb. I got my start as a weeb.
A weeb?
A weeb. Yeah, weeaboo or otaku.
A weeb?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I'll go, huh? Okay, I know I'm old, but man, I'm losing that one. I didn't. Okay, no problem. Okay, keep going. Sorry, didn't interrupt.
You're good. I get that sometimes too. I'm 34, so sometimes people throw out terms, and I'm like, oh no. But yeah, I grew up.
Wait until you hit 55. Then you can.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I started out really into anime. I guess technically before that it was Disney. You know, the classic animations like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Lion King, all that stuff. And when I really got into anime too, I was like, I really want to like draw all this stuff. It was always in the back of my mind though, because like you know, growing up in the 90s and 2000s, especially like you know, being a furry was obviously really looked down on, and people would get bullied. Just like awful things, but like I always had in my head, I'm like, I don't know, I really like some of this artwork, like that is so cool, but like I didn't want any flack either, so that's part of why I was like, I'll just stick with drawing anime, which was already made fun of and picked on a lot when I was growing up, but like less so than if you were a furry. But gosh, it just reminds me, back in the day, you know, growing up, there was the Disney film Robin Hood, you know, and Robin Hood was a fox. And I thought that was so cool, like all the animals, anthropomorphic animals. I'm like, this is great. And then like at some point, my parents were like, oh, we're gonna take you guys to the theaters, me and my sister. And it's like, oh, we're gonna see him. I'm like, Robin Hood Men in Tights. And I was like initially so excited. And then we get to the theater, and he shows up on screen, and I was so mad. I was like, he's not a fox. This is a lie. This isn't Robin Hood. That's not the real Robin Hood. I was so upset.
Out of the Disney characters that are all been drawn up, what's your favorite?
Ooh. Man, what is my favorite? That's a good question. If we're sticking to 2D, I haven't really thought of that before. I really like all of the lions in The Lion King. Obviously, Robin Hood and I think her name was Mary, like their character designs were so cool because I think that was my first exposure to furries dressing in human clothes and leading, human lives. And I was like, that's so cool. So I'd say probably a combination of those. Like, I was always really drawn towards the anthropomorphic side. Like, all the signs were there that I was furry. It just took VRChat. I tell people, VRChat cracks eggs of many kinds. Mine just happened to be furry.
Okay.
Okay. So from the Disney film Men in Tights, how did you find yourself into being classically trained in art?
I wouldn't say completely classically trained, but it was once I went to high school. They offered art classes, so I took the regular art class, like traditional art class, and graphic design. And I really enjoyed it. I did not have the best grades because I was not the most studious of students. I often slept in class. I remember my parents getting called in at one point because I would draw in my sketchbook in every other class but art class. Somehow I was always sleeping in my art class. I don't know why teen me did that, but that was something that I did for a while. Yeah, I wanted to go to college and continue with art, but I ended up not doing that because, my parents and everybody else is like, oh, you're not going to make money that way. It's really hard. It's based on luck. And, I didn't have a lot of money. My parents never had a lot of money. And I certainly didn't when I graduated to high school. So I was taking the 2 prerequisites. I remember I got so disillusioned. It was just even community college. That was all it was. And I tested into English 102, I think. And they came back and hit me with, oh, yeah, you tested into this just fine, but we require all our new students to take, English 100 or whatever, like the very base level. And I was like, that's some BS. That's you trying to, squeeze me of all my money. So, I went into college already, hating it. Not to mention the price of textbooks. Even back then, this was 2008. So, this tiny little spiral journal-looking textbook that I needed for that English class was, $75, and my math textbook, oh man, that was 150 to 200. I know it's a lot worse now, but back then, on top of having to pay for the cost of the classes itself, I'm like, this is so much money. Oh my gosh. And young and dumb, and I was like, well, I already have a job, already making money. And eventually, after trying, I just dropped out of college. I was like, nah, screw this. I think I came out fine though. But yeah, I don't know, man. College, I got mixed feelings on. Obviously, it's necessary. If you're going to become a doctor, go to college. But I think for other things, yeah, who knows? But that's, I think, another discussion.
Okay, fair enough. So did you find yourself re-enjoying art once you got into VRChat Mask? Or did you always still enjoy it?
Yeah. I kind of fell off for a little bit. So I've always had, depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. And I would get really hard on myself. I would compare myself to others and be like, oh, my progress isn't as great as them. Why am I even doing art? And then, AI art coming up on the rise. I was like, man, am I really going to try and, because I initially wanted to be, a 2D artist and draw and try to put my work out there. And AI art came up on the rise, and I'm like, oh, that's even more competition. How am I gonna manage this? And I had set out, I was like, I do want to get back into art, and I had all these plans. But at the time, before VRChat, I ended up getting more focused on my fitness journey. I was like, yeah, I think yeah, that's right. I had taken up rock climbing at the time while I was in Japan. I was insanely active, doing high intensity interval training, weightlifting, yoga, biking, hiking, the rock climbing, you name it. And I kept putting it off. Every once in a while I would do a drawing. But I kept putting it off. I was like, oh yeah, once I reach my fitness goals and I'm in a just maintaining, then I'll focus on my art. But yeah, then I had my adverse reaction, and when I wasn't able to use my hands, I was really regretting that. I was like, yeah, should have been drawing, should have been doing all that. I mean, we're okay now. I've improved quite a bit, But yeah, VRChat, once I got in and I saw the creativity everybody else is pouring into their avatars and just how amazing stuff was, and then I learned about texturing and I was like, oh, okay. That might be something I could do. So I'd say I more seriously started out texturing initially, and I'm by no means the best at texturing. There's like people that have come out with like insane, crazy textures, where I'm like, how did you even come up with this idea? Like that is so cool. I hope I can get on that level someday. But that's where it all started.
Oh wow. So has so VRChat has re-enabled you to do what you enjoy. That's awesome that you're able to go back into things you enjoyed becoming the platform. We've heard of a lot of stories of the similar things that have happened to other people. They've come back in for things they really enjoyed, music maybe, for example.
Yeah.
So what was some of the first things you've found in VRChat when you first came in, may I ask? Communities, stuff like that. Maybe using this AI would be fun.
Hello, user. You appear to be searching for the Metaverse Degen.
Oh, great. I think it's broken. You know the link. Just look at metaversedegen.co. There should be something over there for you to enjoy.
Lion and Raptor. Consume content. Join the cult.
Did it just say cult? Okay. Yeah, no, we're cutting this before this gets weird. Just go to the link. You know it's right down there somewhere. All right. Bye.
And a huge thanks to those who have subscribed to our Patreon, such as Niche, Feature Oracle, Aliquum, Forbidden Zero, and Frozen. Thank you all very much for being there.
I guess technically communities. The first community, they're kind of, they don't play VRChat anymore that I joined. I was initially just hopping public worlds, talking to whoever. It did help out with my social anxiety a lot. I still have it. It still can be bad at times. But, you know, I had that drive because I was like, I can't leave my house and I just want to make friends. So I was like really putting myself out there. You know, I made a group of friends. They were really into the avatar work initially. So with that first group, I didn't really get into it. But like, I'm really thankful that I met them. You know, I learned a lot with like socializing again, because especially with the pandemic and being like holed up in my house, I was definitely socially rusty. That's for sure. Sometimes I wonder if I should apologize to them for some of the social blunders that I made. Yeah, and then like eventually a few people in that group I started hanging out with a little bit more. And I met a few people through them, and then eventually, because I realized I was like trying to stay comfortable. I was like only logging in when they would log on. And I wasn't really meeting anybody new, and I was like, sometimes I would really want to get online, but I was like, I shouldn't be beholden to when other people are on. I should be able to just log in when I want to log in. The other reason I was doing that was because at the time my hands were really rough. So I knew I would only be able to be in for max 15 to 30 minutes at a time before my hands would just hurt too much and I'd have to log off. So that was the other reason where I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait till my friends are in so that way I have people to talk to. And I was like, you know what? No, let's just log in, hop around, see who we meet. And then eventually I met more people. I met people in avatar work. There's a girl, A-Tree. I saw her avatar and she was like showing me all the stuff that she'd done, like especially with like the shader work and the texture work. She's an Avali, a space chicken. And I was like, this is so cool. At the time, I was like, still not a furry though, but that's really cool. And yeah, through her, I met a bunch of other people into avatar work. There was like a whole other community that I was in for a little while. I still am in contact with a fair few from that community, which is really awesome. And just, yeah, I think we all just kind of like inspire each other, even if we're like not specifically trying to, just like by sharing like what we're working on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. It's awesome to know the kind of your origins, where you started. Now, I'm going to ask a little bit because you mentioned a few times, and please apologize if this seems a bit forward. What is the condition you have, and how is it difficult, and how are you pursuing through to do what you do with art?
Okay, so my condition is called fluoroquinolone associated disability. Um, it's when you have a severe adverse reaction to a fluoroquinolone class antibiotic. For me, it was ciprofloxacin. This can range from like tendinitis in your tendons, but it can go everywhere. Unfortunately, it started in my Achilles tendons. I now have it kind of body wide, and it tends to rove. Neuropathy, muscle weakness, muscle atrophy, and there's like a whole host of other things that I can't remember at the top of my head. It can be very disabling. For some people, it's long term. We actually call it long haulers before even COVID long haul symptoms was a thing. On an interesting note, a lot of people suffering from long haul COVID symptoms, excuse me, have been using like our protocol for helping to treat our the layman's term. What we all really just call it is floxing, because that name is a mouthful. You can just say F quad, but floxing tends to roll off the tongue, or being floxed. Some people call themselves floxies. I don't want to identify myself with that. I just say I am floxed or I have F quad. But I ended up getting most of it. Initially, it just started in my Achilles tendons, because I got prescribed very late 2019, just before the pandemic. And I, like a lot of people, I initially had really bad Achilles tendon pain. And so I was worried, and then eventually it went away. And I thought, which unfortunately wasn't true, I thought, oh, okay, cool, I'm in the clear, I'm fine. I even managed to like go back to the States for my sister's wedding and come back. And but that happens to a lot of people. They initially react maybe in one or two areas, it goes away for a few months, and then it just hits back with a vengeance. And that's exactly what happened to me, because I got back to Japan, my husband shipped off to sea, and then it really hit my Achilles tendons. Like there were times like I couldn't even stand. It could bear, so like I just struggled just walking around our little apartment. And but I was trying to keep positive. I was like trying to keep up with my fitness by working out in other ways that just weren't involving my legs. And I remember emailing my husband at one point. I was like really sad, because like I went from like being insanely active and hiking and walking everywhere and rock climbing to like, I can't really do any of that now. And I remember in my email to him, I said, yeah, I'm really sad, I'm really bummed, but like, at least I still have gaming. At least I can go and explore the world of Tyria and Guild Wars 2, even if I can't explore Japan. And then 2 weeks after that, I lost the use of my hands. It was really, really rough. Losing your hands is a hell I would wish on nobody. It wasn't just the loss of the use of my hands. It was horrifically painful. Like I was in chronic pain every day. And yeah, it was bad. It was like insult to injury. My hands were so painful and stiff. I remember trying to play Super Mario Sunshine, because that got re-released on the Switch at around that time, the HD version. And the pain built up in my hands so much. I remember begging. I was like, please just let me be able to play this. Please let me have this. And I wouldn't. So my mental health obviously took a nosedive. And for a while, it just seemed like my condition was worsening and worsening. Like it was not getting better. It spread from my hands to like my neck. I had trouble like lifting my head from my pillow. I had trouble swallowing at one point. And then it was like the muscles and tendons in my abdomen, like it just everywhere. Like I struggled to get out of bed. I was like marginally better than like a paralyzed person, I felt like at the time, because like I struggled to even take care of myself. I remember brushing my teeth was horrifically painful. So unfortunately, for a while, I was only brushing my teeth once a day, because that was all I could manage. And showering was also fresh hell every time. I still forced myself to do it, because I'm like, I'm not about to not bathe. But yeah, it was hell. I wouldn't wish that on literally anybody. Just being in constant pain like that, like I eventually had to reach out, because like I couldn't hold things in my hands. I struggled to even feed our cats, and I was surviving off of protein bars when I was at my worst. and I was even struggling just to open the wrappers. So I had to reach out to, how would you call it, the duty chaplain on the base. We were on Yokosuka Naval Station. And I was like, yeah, I'm in horrific pain every day. All right, because I remember at that point the burning had started. Anywhere that my body was pressed up against anything would just feel like it was on fire. So sleeping was really difficult. And I was like, hey, I'm in a really rough spot. Kind of wanting to take my exit right now, if you will. And I really just need my husband home. I think I'd lasted 9 months at that stage. And so, he talked to me, he really helped me out. Like, I'm not religious, but I'm really thankful to him. I really kind of want to figure out, I still remember his name, so hopefully, I can like get in contact with him, find him again, and really thank him, because like he really helped me in a dire time of need. Got in contact with the ombudsman. That's like a Navy spouse that officially stays in contact with the ship. So like she or he will work as like a liaison, I think, if that's the right term. So like if there's a family emergency, you would contact them, so that way they can get in contact with the ship in an official capacity. And it was kind of up in the air. The chaplain was like, get in contact with the ombudsman, we'll see what we can do. And then I got a call the next morning from my husband, who I hadn't heard his voice in months. He was like, hey, they're going to be sending me home in a helicopter. Oh my gosh. I still remember the relief. Like, I cried. I broke down and cried, because I was like, I didn't know how much longer I'd be able to like keep that up. Like, because it was awful. 2020 was absolutely the worst year of my life. Found out now that alcohol was also not helping me. I, like many, alcohol flares us up quite a bit, and I unfortunately had started turning to alcohol to help cope, because I was horrifically lonely, always in pain. And I remember even noticing, like, when I would drink alcohol and get drunk, I wouldn't really feel pain, but the next day I always felt worse, and I didn't want to accept that. But we learned, my husband came home. I have to thank my husband so much, because I would not be here if not for him. If it weren't for him pointing out all these small ways, like the small little improvements that I would make, like, oh, you were able to like hold on to that glass, you couldn't do that last week, because like when you're going through it and you're constantly in pain, like really, really bad pain, like it messes with your mind. Like you don't see any of your progress. So yeah, if not for him really encouraging me, really pointing out like, hey, you've made this tiny improvement, like you're improving, like I probably would not be here. So I'm very thankful to him. And VRChat also helped out a lot. Like I put out a video because it was which is Disability Month? It was July, I think. So it's like right towards the end, I was almost late. But also around this time, there were people putting out videos of like, oh, VRChat's just filled with predators, VRChat's a cesspool, VRChat's this, that, and the other thing, just like all this negativity. And I wanted to dispel that, like, because I think VRChat's a really positive place, but you get out of it what you put into it. If you're like coming in and trolling, you're not really gonna have like the best of experiences. Or like, I came in with the mind of I want to make friends, I want to like have a community, and I've made some amazing friends here. Like when I was really bad off, I had a friend make a cloud with a seat and attach it to their avatar. So like whenever I couldn't use controllers, I could like sit on their cloud and they could still take me places. That was around one of the viralities too. So it was like really good timing. Then we found out that a lot of worlds, in order to make transitions or things to load, you have to hit, I can't remember what it's called. It's usually like a little square that you have to stand in. And that tells the game, all right, time to load the next area. So like she was taking me through this, like, I thought it was a completely empty, like huge building, until she went into this one room and she made a comment like, oh, like, holy crap, there's so much stuff in here. And I was like, what do you mean, what stuff? And she was like, you don't see all this stuff all around? And I was like, no. And I hopped off the cloud real quick and suddenly everything loaded, and it turned out the entire place was filled with stuff that I was not seeing. So from there, that same friend, she helped me put on a little thing called OSC Leash. If you know, you know, but we used it for accessibility. We did not use it for its intended purpose. We attached it to the hand of one of my avatars, so when I was having trouble, but like we were world exploring, people could come grab my hand and take me with them. And because my avatar was registered as standing and walking, things would load in for me, and it was amazing. I'm so thankful.
Wow. I'm glad you're able to find all of that peace through all of that. Yeah. That's seems like quite a lot. How did you pursue through all that, may I ask?
It was not always easy. I think I'm on, yeah, it's 2025, so going on 5 years of this. I'm a lot better than I was. I'm not perfect, but like I've been slowly improving over time. For some people, FQuad can be permanent, which hopefully won't be me since I have made a lot of improvements. I know a guy who's on year 13 and unfortunately hasn't really improved much. But I've made significant strides. I can hold things in my hands. I can usually, most of the time now, I can run around in VRChat. I still have times where I'm like, okay, the tendons in my hands are kind of letting me know I need to stop, take a break. Yeah, it wasn't always easy. I used to like fall into despair a lot. My husband was very integral. That poor man. I ended up seeking therapy finally. I still have a lot to do with seeing doctors and stuff to get the official diagnosis. Which, if anybody knows military medicine, you'll know the struggle with that. There's a meme going around, or it's kind of like a guy like breaks his arm or his leg or something, and a military doctor goes, "Oh, you broke your leg? Have you tried ibuprofen?" They want to just throw ibuprofen at the issue and be done. Like it's notoriously bad, unfortunately, you know. And I'm not trying to throw shade to anybody whose spouse is, you know, a military doctor and does good work. There are some, like Dr. Young in Yokosuka was amazing. Once I started seeing him, fantastic. I wish I could have like kept him as my doctor. But yeah, before that it was a battle. Because my reaction is considered rare. Even when I was not able to really stand hardly, I had doctors telling me like, "Oh, well, that reaction's so rare, so it's not happening to you." I'm like, I mean, my lifestyle hasn't changed. I was fine before the antibiotic, and now I'm not fine. Occam's razor sort of situation here, I think. But I had a lot of them, you know, just kind of write me off, stuff like that. And I had to like fight. I had to file a formal complaint before anything got done. And even after that, I had 2 incidences that I can remember. One military doctor was like, you know, I came in, he asked me if I was doing better. I was not at that stage. And he was like, well, you know, they did some studies where they found that women who have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety can display pain symptoms. And this is the first time in my life I'd ever interrupted a doctor talking to me. And I was like, except I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety in childhood. And I am not about to tell you that this is all in my head because of this. I was fine right up until the antibiotic. I've had these mental health concerns since childhood. So I'm going to stop you right there. And, you know, this credit, he did stop. The other doctor, who I wish I would have reported, I'm a little outside of the window now, but I was very scared. He basically threatened me because I went in, and this is right around the time I lost the use of my arms, because like the tendons were like very stiff, like all the way up into my elbow. Couldn't use my hands. And he did note that the tendons in my ankles were very bad off, and he was telling me like, you need to wear a boot, you need to come back in. And like I don't know if he thought I wasn't gonna listen to his advice on wearing the boots. I was, but you know, I told him, I was like, I think it's the antibiotic, and he was like, no, it's not, it's really rare. And I wasn't, you know, being irate. I was like, yeah, but you know, they've done some more recent studies, and at that stage they had in 2021, there was like a study right then that year. And he was like, I'm going to cut you off before I do or say something that I might regret because I'm getting angry. Or she said something to that effect. And I was like, whoa, okay. I ended up just not going back to see him. I think that's what prompted me to file the complaint. And luckily after that, I got to see a rheumatologist at St. Luke's International Hospital in Tokyo. Japanese doctors were amazing. they had no qualms being like, this isn't my area of expertise. We don't know, or we'll try to learn. But yeah, as suspected, because a lot of our symptoms kind of reflect autoimmune. But for most of us, we end up not having anything wrong autoimmune. Like, I got tested for lupus and a whole host of other things and just came back fine. So yeah, it's a struggle. Sorry, my ADHD. Where did this stem from? Where was this going? What was your question?
I
I'm so
asked, how did you
sorry.
pursue through what you've went through? Ask.
Okay, so I'm still on topic. I wanted to make sure. Like, am I just going on a roll now? Or are we like off somewhere? Shoot. Yeah, like pursuing it is a lot of doctor's visits. It's exhausting, especially after my experience being gaslit and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and the initial doctor that prescribed me the antibiotic did not help either, because I tried to let her know. I was like, hey, because it wasn't the first time I'd been prescribed ciprofloxacin. And unfortunately, I know now that if you ever have even the slightest reaction to a fluoroquinolone antibiotic, you're not supposed to ever take it again. I didn't know that. The doctor should have known that. There's a lot of black box warnings. Even back when I got prescribed it in 2019, there was 3. There was like the possible Achilles tendonitis or tendon rupture. Tendon rupture is a risk. Aortic heart rupture is also a risk. It's seriously horrific stuff, like the neuropathy, muscle weakness, all that stuff. But she only told me, oh, you might just get Achilles tendonitis or possible tendon rupture. I just have to let you know, but it only happens to old people or athletes. And I was like, okay, I'm not old, but I'm very active. Like, I'm not an Olympic athlete or anything. And I told her, all the stuff that I was doing, and she was like, oh, you'll be fine. No, I was not fine, unfortunately. I wish she had been correct. But yeah, for a while after that, after coming back home to the States, and even though Dr. Young was really, really good, he was an amazing doctor, and the Japanese doctor I saw at St. Luke's, mental health wasn't great, and I was just like very disillusioned with doctors, very scared to actually go back. I think it's kind of understandable why. So I kind of just said, you know what, I don't want to deal with doctors. So like for the first year I was back, I just didn't see anybody. I still hate going to the doctors. I still go. They're still very necessary. It's very important that you do work with your doctors, but also keep in mind to advocate for yourself. They're not in my opinion, like, they're not in your body. They don't know how exactly things feel. And if you're uncomfortable with something, don't be afraid to speak up. It would have been no problem, or it should have been no problem, for me to have asked that doctor to switch my antibiotic, because I was initially uncomfortable. And but there was, the bacteria we would have had success with any other antibiotic. They're finding now, and per FDA guidelines, they're supposed to be using other simpler antibiotics. Fluoroquinolones, because of all the black box warnings and how dangerous they are, they're supposed to be a drug of last resort. Like, you've tried everything else and nothing else has worked, or it's life and death, which is not what it was for me. I just had a urinary tract infection, very simple, easy thing, and they basically threw like the max thing they could at it. Like, so yeah, it's unfortunate that we do have to advocate for ourselves in some situations with doctors, but that just kind of is how it is. I'm not saying don't see doctors ever. I still do. It's very important, but be careful. Do your research. Talk with your doctors. And if you don't like what they're saying, you feel like they're not taking you seriously, do not be afraid to see somebody else, because that's another mistake that I've made. I regret that very much. But yeah, I'm still currently in the process of dealing with this. I have to see a neurologist. I get to get electrocuted soon. Yay. A whole host of things. But we're going. I'll be re-enrolled in what's called the Exceptional Family Member Program. It's military family members that have special needs, whether that's physical or mental or what have you.
Okay. How did you, when you're going through all this and also working on avatars and stuff, how did you find the will to keep on working on the hobbies you enjoyed, may I ask, with all of that going on?
And it was difficult. Hyperfocus both helped and did not help. Because I do have ADHD. I'd say it's moderate to severe, and when I hyper focus on something, I'm all in. 12 hours can drop away, and I don't even feel it. But the unfortunate thing with that, especially when I was worse off, was I would ignore pain signs, and I would work and work and work, and then the next thing I knew, I would stop, and my hands and arms would be absolutely messed up, and then I'd be upset, and I'd be like, oh, I can't do anything now. I get really upset. Like, it used to take me a very long time to recover, like weeks, months at the very worst, when I was still really bad off. So it was kind of like I kept having to make that mistake before I was finally like, okay, I know I'm super into what I'm doing, but I had to really learn to pay attention to my body when it was letting me know, hey, enough is enough, because it just was not worth the massive setbacks that I would get. Because, beforehand with my working out and everything, it was like, I unfortunately fell into that toxic no pain, no gain, which don't do that with this. I had to learn that the hard way. Because, I was of the opinion of like, because, I didn't want to lose any of the muscle that I gained because I was working on building muscle. And, it's the common thing is like use it or lose it for your muscles when you're building muscle. And when you're in they call it the acute phase of floxing, it's instead of use it or lose it, it was use it and lose it. I got told by many people, since I was in the acute phase back then, I need to aggressively rest. And I did not take that seriously initially, and I very quickly learned that I needed to, although I was very stubborn. Unfortunately, that's kind of a character flaw. I was very stubborn initially. I kept hurting myself. A great example was we had a light switch with like a bunch of different settings for like the fan and the lighting and stuff like that, and it was acting kind of weird. And so I was holding my arm out to it just a little bit longer than you normally would, and it felt like my bicep exploded. Is the best way I can describe it, and I couldn't use my arm for months after that. So yeah, I learned the hard way when people were warning me, like, you need to aggressively rest, they meant it. Aggressively rest. It was very maddening and infuriating, because I was super used to being very active, and then to like go from that to like, I need to be as still as possible at all times, especially when you have ADHD like I do, you're usually like moving. They call it stimming, I think. Like I would usually bounce my legs, or I'd be messing with something with my hands, and like I was at a stage where I couldn't even do that. I had to be perfectly still and be careful on how I placed my body. And I did not realize how much my brain needed movement to stay functioning properly until that happened. It was awful.
Oh. So I have another question for you as well. The journey you've been on here in VRChat, did you expect any of that from when you put on the headset?
No. Like I never expected to get full body tracking because I didn't think I would ever be able to like stand enough to justify that. But then I got so into it, and I was so envious of my friends with legs. I was like, maybe it would be worth, even if all I'm doing is sitting most of the time. But honestly, that was like one of the best investments I've ever made with full body tracking, because it didn't, I was finally out of the acute phase, which helped. And it encouraged me to stand more. And so through standing more to be in VRChat, I started rebuilding some of the muscles in my legs and my back and my abdomen and stuff like that. And so I started regaining the strength. And so now, thanks to full body tracking, and because I've been standing a lot more, I can walk, not very long, but I can walk, I can stand for a lot longer. I go on walks around the neighborhood with my husband. I never dreamed I would ever do that again. I thought straight up I'll never be able to really walk again. And now I go on fairly regular walks with my husband. It's usually max 1 mile at this point. That's about all I can manage right now. But gosh, I think even a year ago, I couldn't even have dreamed of doing that. So I think full body tracking has just been probably the best investment I have ever made in my life. I'm so glad I did. It was so expensive because, like I said, I started out with Quest. I'm using Vibes and a Tundra tracker on top. So it was really expensive. I bought it all over time, but very worth it. I don't know if I would be in the physical condition that I am in now, which is way better than where I started.
That's amazing. I'm glad that VRChat was able to help you like that. That's such a harrowing story.
Yeah. I'm usually like a little leery about telling people because like I don't want to be like, oh, I'm the Debbie Downer. Let me make you guys feel bad because of my horrible story. But
Hmm.
kind of working through that.
Well, I wouldn't be so down on yourself about it because even through that, you're able to push through. You're able to do what you enjoy. You're not get up and doing things. You're finding motivation to do things. It's, in fact, kind of inspiring it as well. So don't put yourself down like that.
Oh, thank you. I'm very glad this does not have blush tracking.
Ah, well, I would say thank you very much, Meia, for coming to speak with us. It's been an absolute honor getting to hear
Yeah,
you and
very
your
much
tale.
so.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for having me. It's an honor. I never expected any of this.
Well, where can the audience find you if they wish to find you or your work?
I do have a YouTube channel. I had it taken down at one point, falsely flagged. So like, I'm a little leery on posting on it now because of that. It's been reinstated. It's fine. I do still post. I think it's just like my name in VRChat. It's like Meia. There's also my Gumroad and my Ko-fi, and then I have my Meia Edits Discord server. I'd say those would be good places.
Okay. We'll have all of those as easy to click links right down in the description below. If you kind of go down a bit, you see a thing called a description and then click more. We have a section down there called guest links. And right in there, all of those links you mentioned will be right there for you to find and click, especially if you like the avatar she's in. So with that said, we'll reach this point of this episode where we'll ask you, the audience, the question: what is the most memorable time with your friends in VRChat? Or if you're not in VRChat in your real life, we'd like to hear about it. One of mine is back. I remember one time after high school, mine came to my house without asking and just came in. Firemen carried me out the door, threw me in the back of one of their pickup trucks with a ceramic toilet, a block of cement, and a thing of tools, and then started doing donuts. Don't play dodgeball with ceramic toilets. It's not fun. But it's the most memorable one I got. So with that said, Mr. Raptor, you know the thing.
Yeah, I know the thing, but you forgot 2 questions, you ding dong. So
Oh.
I'm gonna ask him. Where do you get your name from? Where'd you come up with the name from? This is a turn of events. And me saying it instead of him. Wow, let's say.
I know I'm a horrible person.
No,
No, you're
not,
good, you're good.
ding dong. Yeah, where'd you come up with your name from?
Oh man, this goes back to my original weeb roots. There's an anime called Vandred. Fantastic old anime, recommend. It's futuristic. Men and women have long since been separated in outer space. They view each other as alien species. It's hilarious. The first opening episode is a guy walking up to another guy and we're like, hey, how's it going? You want to make a baby together? Yeah, sounds good too.
Oh my fucking god.
Yes, it's amazing.
Oh
So my name comes from Vandred. There was a character called Meia. I believe her last name was Gisborne, and I wanted to be like her. She was like badass, fighter woman. I was like, yo, that's cool. The funny thing is, though, I actually spelled the name wrong. I had a Y in there. There was no Y in her name. But yeah, that's where her name stemmed from. 14, 15-year-old me being like, yeah, that's cool. It's just stuck.
Okay. Now the other question the Superman over here forgot is, why did you pick the avatar that you're in?
Man, like I said, crazy cat lady, and the Nova Beast, I was like, that would make a perfect cat. So I sculpted on it, made it a cat. This texture is kind of paying homage to my cat baby. He passed away last year. He was a orange and white cat. He's super mama's boy, and I miss him every day. And I made this texture, and people say it suits me. So I'm like, I guess this is just what I look like now. So,
Okay. Now, since we got to that point, I'll answer what you just said and finish this up, folks, knowing that situations are situations, no matter where you go or who you are. But when you overcome the nightmares that might be in your backyard or in your front yard, and hope it ain't your dog, you're stepping in somebody else's mess, enjoy your day, have a good one, and we'll talk to you later. And I'm too goddamn serious. What the hell is wrong with this?